front of him. He has many accomplishments, so bear with me as I go through them. He has stood on the summit of Mount Everest and the tallest peak on all of the 7 continents. He skied down the highest peak in Europe, the High Alps, Chamonix to Zermatt. I got that right, $5, guys. He climbed the 3,000, they were sure I was going to mess that one up. He climbed the 3,000-foot vertical face of El Capitan in Yosemite and the 3,000-foot ice fall in the Himalayas. He's a certified skydiver. He's learned to pilot a paraglider solo. He completed one of the toughest adventure races in the world. 8 days, 460 miles, 60,000 feet of elevation change, no timeouts. And he raced for a month from Morocco as part of an ABC reality series, Expedition Impossible. He has guided young people on educational adventures across the Peruvian Andes to 22,000 feet in Tibet. And he co-founded No Barriers USA with a mission of unleashing the human spirit in all people. As part of this organization, he created No Barriers Warriors, which leads transformative journeys around the world to help veterans reclaiming their lives after devastating injuries. He's kayaked, this is a lot, Eric. He's kayaked the last 4 whitewater rivers in Colorado, Mexico and Peru, and most recently solo kayaked the entire 277-mile length of the Grand Canyon. He's the author of 2 best-selling books and has produced 3 major films. His 3rd book, No Barriers, was released to critical acclaim. Please join me in welcoming Erik Weihenmayer. Thanks, Eric.
There you are. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Steph. Awesome. That was very nice. But Steph didn't mention actually my biggest climb yet. I just got home. Actually, so it's fortunate I could be here today because I just got back from the Matterhorn, climbing the Matterhorn, and I, fighting through really bad conditions and incredibly bad weather. But I finally reached the summit with my team, and Mickey's pretty tough. He's a great partner. So it's wonderful to be here. Thank you very much. I didn't mention the Matterhorn and Disney, by the way, if that wasn't obvious. But so Steph mentioned these accomplishments, right? A long list of accomplishments, and those are fun to talk about. But I think what doesn't get talked about enough is the struggle. Because it has been a struggle to live this life. I call it a no barriers life. To, first of all, define it, to push the parameters of what it means. A lot of times you feel like you're just failing it and bleeding it. And I think part of the equation of this kind of life is really understanding the learning process. This process of growth and change and transformation that we're all part of. And then diving into that experience and trying to illuminate those elements, those universal elements that exist along the way that you have to confront and harness. They're like holds on a rock face. They're like waypoints on a map. And they lead you forward and they give you clues to where we're going and why it's so important we get there. And I wish that learning process, though, like in the movies, was this nice neat arc upward with some violin music and a nice crescendo, and you eat some popcorn and everyone's changed and you go home happily ever after. But it's just not the way it works. My friend Jeff Evans, one of my climbing partners, he says change, it's more like a way a volcano spews lava, and it's not for the faint-hearted. That's the way I felt at 40 years old, starting this brand new endeavor of whitewater kayaking and standing on the banks of the Colorado River, listening to this massive roar of the rapids below me, and just thinking, I'm the guy who climbed Everest, why am I so terrified? and knowing that I had this big journey ahead of me, so many questions I didn't have answers to. How would my guide guide me down the river? Communication was incredibly important, precise. If you're a foot too far to the right or too far to the left, it's the difference between getting through the rapid and getting hammered. And how would I even hear my partner when the rapids get 20, 30 feet tall and you're separated. You know, we had to develop a high-tech communication system, flawless, communicated in real time, totally waterproof. And even a second of delay in a rapid is an eternity. So everything had to go perfectly. And there were thousands of hours of preparation. You know, where you're just flailing and bleeding and slamming into rocks and spinning around and flipping over and panicking and pulling this skirt on my kayak and swimming for my life through these rapids. And I'd get out of the river that day and I'd say, I gotta keep it positive. What did I learn today? I learned why there aren't that many blind kayakers in the world. But it had a purpose, because I had a no barriers pledge, and that was to kayak the Grand Canyon, 277 miles through the Grand Canyon, not to prove that blind people can do this or that, but to live, to break out of these prisons that we often find ourselves in, and experience life fully, and these natural iconic wonders of the world. Walls that are thousands of feet around you. You don't have to see them, you can hear them. And you can touch them. They're billions of years old. And then Colorado being the gauntlet of some of the most incredible whitewater in the world. I wanted to experience it all. And I had an amazing guide, Harlan Taney, half human, half dolphin. He was an incredible guide. I trained for more than 6 years. And we were ready to go. We left, and by the way, before we left, we were doing great, by the way, crushing every rapid. And that was until about day 16. And day 16, you encounter what's called lava falls. It's 10 out of 10 on the Grand Canyon scale. It's head and shoulders bigger than any other rapid on the river. My wife actually, she checked out a YouTube video of lava falls before we left. That was probably a big mistake. And checking out the disaster here. Yeah. But we got out of the boat and scouted lava. It's very important for a blind guy to scout a rapid, right? Actually it is, because Harlan takes my finger and he runs it through the map of lava. Now, when you go into these situations in life, in the river, you feel like you're going into absolute chaos. You're riding a wave just on the edge of chaos. But when you stop to really understand your environment, to be observant, you begin to understand that through that chaos is a map. And in kayaking, they call it the line. You want to stay as near on the line as possible, because your chances of emerging on the other side are highly increased. And so lava has kind of a counterintuitive line. You angle in on the right, and you ride this, what they call a slip, right on the edge of this eddy fence, this massive conflicting currents of water that create an actual water fence to your right. You ride that slip in to these boils. These boils rise up from the bottom of the river. They smash against the shore. They come back and whip you like a monster's tail into what's called the ledge hole. The ledge hole is a massive washing machine that wants to suck you down and hold you there. You get by that and you hit the V wave. These massive waves that come together, 20-foot waves, and you bump right to the left of the V, and you come out into the river and you square up against the big kahuna waves, giant waves that crash over you one after the next, and then you get through those, you squeak by what's called cheese grater rock. I guess that's self-explanatory. And you ride the whirlpools and the boils out of lava falls. Well, I got in my boat, I was so nervous. I was almost paralyzed by fear. And I rode that slip in, and I hit that first set of boils, and I leaned too far to the right, and I was upside down. That is not part of the map. Worst place in the river to be upside down, going into lava falls. I rolled up and I just missed the V wave, or excuse me, I just missed the ledge hole. I went into the V wave cockeyed. It flipped me over. I went into a massive cartwheel, rolled through. I was going through the big kahuna waves now backwards, not part of the map. I got knocked over, thousands of pounds of water crushing me down. I barely got a breath. I rolled up again. I got knocked over again. I couldn't hear Harlan. Where the heck was he? It turns out that he was having an epic of his own because he had put his paddle up against one of these massive waves that busted his carbon fiber paddle in half, smashed him in the nose. He was upside down, bloody nose, 2 broken pieces of his paddle, thinking, how am I going to roll up? How am I going to communicate with Erik? And I panicked, and I pulled my skirt, and I was now swimming blind through lava falls. So there's more struggle on these journeys than there are triumphs. In fact, you know, I'm the inspirational blind guy, so maybe I'm not supposed to say this, but I hate it when people tell me anything is possible. They're like, anything is possible. And you're like, have you kayaked lava falls blind lately? It's a wonderful phrase, but sometimes it's just used a little bit too easy. You know, these massive barriers that we confront, that they want to knock us down flat on our backs as we try to live a life that matters. I wrote a book. It was my second book. It was called The Adversity Advantage. And I teamed up with this amazing scientist, Dr. Paul Stoltz. And we studied people and teams around the world. And we came away understanding that people, simply put, they fall into 3 categories. They're either quitters, campers, or climbers. Now, quitters are self-explanatory. We're not going to talk about them today. But campers are a fascinating group because they make up so much of the world. They're those of us who start out climbing, as I think we all do, with hope and excitement and optimism. And then somewhere along the way, somewhere along that ascent, things get in the way. Our own beliefs. We stop believing in the cause. Maybe we get to a nice safe spot on the mountain. We say, I'm going to stop right here. To go any higher is just too painful, too much suffering. Or maybe we try, we give 100% of our heart, and we fall short or we fail, we get shattered. It sends a vibration of trauma through our soul. Or maybe we wake up one day and cynicism is pouring down around our brains like a prison. Or we wake up and the world's changed so quickly that we don't know how to attack it anymore. Or maybe we're plodding up the mountain slowly but surely, one barrier after the next, like brick walls, they just keep getting in our way, sapping our energy, killing our momentum, shoving us to the sidelines, sometimes into a dark place, a place we don't want to be. And now we're camping. And personally, we begin to stagnate. But worse than that, much worse than that, all our potential, all our energy, all our life force, it's lost to the world. Climbers are a rare group. If I could see, I'd be looking at a lot of climbers here. They're those people who continue to figure out a way to grow and evolve and explore and challenge themselves every day of their lives till the day they die. So I think the question for us all is, how do we climb? When it makes so much more sense, it's so much easier to camp. I know about camping firsthand because when I was a freshman in high school, I got derailed. I went blind from this incredibly rare eye disease. It was like winning the lottery, but the exact opposite. I remember being led into school for the first time as a newly blind person, being led to class, being led to the bathroom, being led to the cafeteria, sitting at a table by myself, listening to all excitement and laughter and joy and food fights passing me by that I wanted to be a part of. And I was afraid to go blind and see darkness. That was scary. But way scarier was that I wouldn't be part of those food fights. That I would be swept to the sidelines, that I'd be left there in this dark place, I'd be forgotten, a life lived for nothing. a life that was meaningless, that was way more terrifying than anything blindness could deliver. And I could still see just a little bit out of my right eye. If I could get really close to the TV set, I could push my face right up against the screen, and I could watch TV for a few more months as I lost the last traces of vision. And one night I was watching this show. They were focusing on this guy. His name was Terry Fox. Terry was a Canadian, and he had lost a leg to cancer. And he was still in the hospital when he decided that he was going to run across Canada. Now, this is thousands of miles. This is a marathon a day. This is not the normal decision a person in his situation is supposed to make. Most people, what do you do when those things happen? You curl up in a ball and you protect the little bit that you have left. But nobody taught that to Terry. See, he understood intuitively, maybe counterintuitively, that between the things that happen to you and the ways that you're supposed to react, there's a space. And in that space, there's a choice. And he chose to attack. And he was in the hospital. He was in the hospital and he was watching kids die of cancer, much younger than him. And instead of allowing that tragedy to crush him, he gathered it up and he converted it into something else, something bigger, a kind of darkness into vision. And he used that as energy to propel himself forward, every faltering step along that road. And the miles, for sure, they took a terrible toll on his body. I mean, his stump was covered with blisters. The look on his face, just an absolute contradiction, full of exhaustion, yet at the same time, full of exaltation. And I thought to myself, there's something inside of us. The only way I could describe it was a light that seemed to be able to feed on frustration, on setbacks, to use those things as fuel. The greater the challenge, the brighter that light just kept burning. And I hoped it existed in me. See, I had been doing a lot of looking out into the world and blaming and reacting and responding. And I realized that vision was internal. It began from within. I needed to tap into that light of Terry Fox, to commit to it, to grow it, to nurture it, to ignite it into the world, and to square off with that storm of life and emerge on the other side, not just damaged as little as possible, but actually stronger and better. And it was a few weeks after that I got this letter. It was a group taking blind kids rock climbing for the first time. I ran my hand up the wall of my room and I thought, who would be stupid enough to take a blind kid rock climbing? So I signed up. I was tired of building walls around myself, protecting myself from loss. Like Terry Fox, I wanted to attack. And I found through trial and error that I could use my hands and my feet as my eyes, and I could do a pull-up, and I could scan my hand across the face. And just before I was ready to lose strength in my forearms and fingers, I had to fall. I'd dig in a little crack, a pocket, to keep me stuck to the face a few seconds longer so I could do another pull-up, scan my other hand. I left a lot of blood and skin on the rock that first time. But I got to the top, and it was so exhilarating, it was so vibrant, it was almost painful. It was like a rebirth. I gotta say though, as beautiful and vibrant as it was also really scary. And there's one thing that has not changed much since that very first time I went rock climbing, more than 30 years ago. And that's the reason. And we know it's almost impossible to turn back. I think those fears, they're overwhelming. The fear of flopping on our face, of making a terrible mistake that affects so many others. The fear that we're not as good at something as we wish we were. The fear that we've climbed as high as we can go. There's nowhere else to go but down. You know, all these fears, they conspire against us. and they paralyze us. So that maybe we decide to stop reaching. I think there's a big difference between many people and those who embrace the reach. They understand that life is an ongoing, never-ending process of reaching out into the darkness. When we don't know exactly what we'll find, we're constantly reaching towards immense possibilities. They're always unseen, yet they're sensed. While so many others allow that darkness to paralyze them. I reached out that day. I know you reach out every day. It's led to some great adventures around the world. I should probably back up and tell you I'm not like a crazy blind Evel Knievel, by the way. I don't see myself as like an adrenaline junkie, cheating death. Blind is fine, blind is stupid, that's fatal. I see myself maybe the way you see yourselves, as a problem solver, as an innovator. I love looking at things that maybe others see as impossible, improbable, unlikely, and then figuring out a way forward, pioneering possibilities. And when you look at these photos of people doing these insane things, they look so seamless and easy on the surface. As you know, what they're not seeing is the years and years of building that infrastructure behind that photo, building that foundation of success that fuels everything. All the systems and the strategies and the tools and the technologies, and then combining them together, integrating them all together, that make things move faster, be safer, more productive, more efficient, to be more nimble, to be more positioned to seize hold of all the opportunities right before you. And a blind person, by the way, you get really good at being able to create systems. You either create systems or you sort of sit on the sidelines, like knowing how, even just like to match my socks. Safety pins, if they're blue on the toe, if they're brown on the heel, if they're black on the top. Or actually, recently I just started buying black socks. That simplified things a bit. Or knowing how to identify money by the smell. Can anyone do that? Anyone? Actually, I can't do that one. I'm just kidding. Or in college, I had this system for, I'd be talking to a girl in a bar, and she'd say, I like talking to you because you're not judging me by my surface beauty, you're judging me by my inner beauty. But really, I had this very specialized handshake. By the way, my friend would walk over and shake my hand, would tell me what she looked like. Sorry, blind guys are pigs too. But see, there's always a way forward. Yeah. Always. You just have to find it. And sometimes those ways forward, they're not obvious. They're not glamorous at first. They're pretty gritty. Like when I met my friend Kyle. We were running one of our No Barriers summits, and we were doing the clinic for people with different kinds of challenges. We were hiking a mountain with people. We had blind people using trekking poles and bear bells. We had amputees that were using high-tech prosthetics, and we had paraplegics cranking their way up the mountain with their arms. And then Kyle showed up. And he showed up the day before the clinic. And I'm like, we're No Barriers, but you don't have arms. You don't have legs. I don't know what we're going to do here. But we're No Barriers. We got to scramble. We got to make this happen. So we went to his hotel room, and we stole bath towels. Actually, we liberated them for a better life. And then we got packing tape and foam and shopping bags. And the next morning, we pushed him to the base of the mountain, got him out of his chair, wrapped his stumps up with foam and bath towels and packing tape and shopping bags. And for the next 8 hours, Kyle crabbed his way through mud and dirt and over rocks and through snow to the top of a 12,000-foot peak in Colorado. See, he could have stopped there too. He could have said, I've done it, I've arrived. But he continued to build out his systems and strategies and tools. And he continued to strengthen the team around him. See, that was just the beginning for Kyle. Because that next January, after 10 days on the mountain, he reached the summit of Kilimanjaro, the tallest peak in Africa. And see, over time, really terrible ideas like bath towels and packing tape, they gave way to better ideas, all the way to welding sleeves and pot holders and mountain bike tires that they cut up and glued to his prosthetics, various prosthetics, all the way to these carbon fiber prosthetic limbs with Vibram rubber soles to purchase on rock, and lightweight titanium crampons that you can screw on for ice and snow. I mean, bath towels eventually became RoboKyle. And it was by continuing to iterate that Kyle, the next January, reached the summit of Aconcagua, almost 23,000 feet, the tallest peak in South America. See, he'll never stop climbing. You ask me how to get started, you guys know, I mean, it's bath towels and packing tape. Or silicone and, programming languages. Whatever your field is whatever you got. That's what you use. And you continue to innovate relentlessly. See, and as you know, innovation, it never stands still. You keep moving forward. And I've been a part of some incredible technologies over the years. I've been a guinea pig for a device that someday may enable blind people to see. It's called the BrainPort. It's based on this incredible idea that I'm sure you know about, neuroplasticity. It's the idea that the brain is so incredibly nimble that it can always find a pathway forward, sometimes pathways that nature didn't even intend. So the idea is that if one thing breaks in the body, then you just find a new pathway into the brain, because it's the brain that sees, not the eyes. And so they found the tongue. So this device works with a camera, projects a video image that projects and gets translated. That light image gets projected to a microprocessor. By the way, this used to be a giant computer that I rolled behind me with a bunch of technicians and engineers scrambling along behind me. And now the microprocessor is a tiny little remote control that you hold in your pocket. And that microprocessor translates that light image to a tactile plate that I wear on my tongue, so that those little vibrating pixels make shapes and lines that my brain interprets as the space around me. And I love climbing. It's really cool to be able to see the holes and the cracks, but better than that is to play games with my kids. This is my daughter, Emma. So we're gonna play a game, and Emma often cheats me, so I'm gonna pay careful attention and make sure that she is on the up and up. All right, so put the tongue in. I got the intensity pretty good, and got the contrast good. Okay, so you ready? You say stone, paper, or rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Crushed you.
Okay. You ready?
Yeah.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Yeah. 3 for me.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Aw. See, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but technology, it can be frustrating, but it can also be this incredible game changer. It can open up doors of possibility. It can increase our capabilities. It can connect us to the world in ways that are almost unimaginable. So we're so fortunate. We live in such a pioneering world when a blind person can see with his tongue, or you can have a lightsaber duel with your smartphone, or you can build technologies that make airplanes fly safer, or computers that can go into space and assist astronauts. And data centers that can help in the process of curing cancer, solving the problems of world hunger. This is a pioneering world we live in. We're so fortunate. And I think the most exciting, and I'll admit the most daunting part of life, is when we see ourselves as pioneers. When we reach out beyond convention and we discover those unexpected ways of crossing through those blurry lines between what maybe others see as impossible, improbable, unlikely, but what we believe in our hearts to be fully possible. See, here's the problem. Here's the trouble. You know, there's always a catch, right? When we commit to this life, this no barriers life, we're not asking for an easy life. When we try to climb higher and higher up the mountain, higher than anyone's ever climbed before, we bring adversity into our lives. It's not like we're asking for it, but it finds us. I think there is a powerful relationship between the extent of our reach and the amount of adversity we accept into our lives. The two go hand in hand. And I think this relationship works just as powerfully in reverse. Because when we look at the ceilings that exist all around us in our professional and personal lives, what do we feel at first? We feel overwhelmed. We feel paralyzed by it. But then we commit to it. We commit to attacking it. And it releases tremendous energy and potential within us and our teams. I don't think it's enough just to keep up with the pace of change or solve problems. That just gets you further behind. I think we have to be relentless. We have to look at the challenges all around us, the small ones that wear us down, that make us feel like we're treading water, but we're still drowning, losing time, all the way up to these most complex issues that face us as human beings on the horizon, ready to bear down on us. But see, it takes a lot of courage as a team not to bury your head in the sand, but to square off with adversity, to square off with it and walk into the storm. The best example I've ever met of a person able to do this is a friend of mine. He's my hero. His name is Mark Wellman. When Mark was in his 20s, he was a brilliant climber. He was climbing a peak in the Sierra Nevadas. He fell 150 feet. He broke his back, paralyzed from the waist down. Game over. But he decided he was going to climb again. He wanted to find a way. And he went out with his partner who anchors the rope. And then Mark invented this pull-up bar. It locks onto the rope with a brake, like an ascender connected to the rope. He pulls himself up. He slides up the rope on an ascender connected to his chest, pushes the bar up, pulls himself up, pushes the bar up, pulls himself up. He only gets about 6 inches up with each pull-up. He climbed El Capitan, 3,000 feet of overhanging granite. They estimated he did over 7,000 pull-ups in 8 days. Mark's what I call an alchemist. An alchemist. You can take the lead that life piles on top of them and they'll figure out a way to transform it into gold. With an alchemist, they don't do the things you always hear about. They don't avoid adversity. That's impossible. They don't just deal with it or survive it. They don't even always overcome it, as you hear so often. These alchemists, they figured out how to do something different, to seize hold of that storm of adversity that swirls around us, to harness that energy and use that energy to propel themselves forward to places they would have never gone to in any other way. With an alchemist, you can throw them in the midst of a fierce, uncertain environment. You throw away their resources, you throw roadblocks in front of them. They still find a way to win. Not despite adversity, because of it. I think if we want to win and grow and innovate and create these strong teams around us, to create new paradigms that the world follows, the way we harness the challenges in our lives is our greatest advantage. You know, imagine that while other teams are just happy to be riding this wave of success that we're on, you're using the energy of this bold moment to make moves forward, to drive forward, to innovate, to never stop? And what if the adversities that we experience along the way, what if they aren't the enemy? What if they're the pathway to greatness? I got to climb with my hero, Mark Wellman, a few years back. We climbed this beautiful tower outside of Moab, Utah. We actually had a third teammate with us that day. He's definitely another alchemist. His name is Hugh Herr. Hugh, when he was 17 years old, he was a brilliant climber. And he was pushing hard up an ice face on Mount Washington in New Hampshire in the winter. And he got lost in a storm. He went down the wrong side of the mountain. His legs froze. They had to be amputated. And he woke up in the hospital. And he looked down at the sheets where his legs were supposed to be that just dropped into space. And he wailed from as deep a place as pain could come from. But he told me, he said, Eric, the greatest breakthrough of my life was when he looked down at where his legs were supposed to be. And instead of seeing loss, what he saw was a blank canvas. See, he was the artist. And that loss, it hadn't just become a vacuum or a void. It had begun slowly to transform into the seeds of creation. And he knew that he could build in that space whatever his mind could conceive. And he didn't have to copy human anatomy anymore or other technologies. He could build something brand new. And he wanted to climb. So he built these legs. Nobody had seen anything like them. No heels, just these little doorstops that he could wedge into seams no human foot could even attempt to stand up in. And by doing that, he became a way better climber than when he had real feet. They called him the first $6 million man. In fact, there's this climb where I live, and nobody could get to the top of it. And Hugh looked up, and he climbed this thing. He flashed it right to the top. And somebody said, Hugh, what's your secret? He said, well, it wasn't really a big deal. I noticed there was a hold out of people's reach, so I just made my legs a foot longer. That's what an alchemist does. And then that struggle taught him that he had some talents he didn't even know existed. He went back to school, got a PhD in bioengineering from MIT, builds the most sophisticated prosthetic legs in the world. He runs the biomechatronics laboratory at MIT, builds legs with R&D are like $65 million. But back then, we were just sort of teenage mutant ninja turtles, I guess. And we climbed this beautiful rock face together. Check out the three of us climbing here.
Ready? Yeah. Go at 160. Okay. Damn, dude. Pretty chilly up here.
Your hands cold?
A little bit. They're not going numb though.
Are your feet numb?
Very funny.
Feels so good to be out of my wheelchair.
a lot of challenge. Thank you. There's a lot of challenge out there. Lots of challenge. Not just on the mountain either, but off the mountain. I just imagine all the challenges that you face, you know? Just the challenges of leadership. You know, of the world getting so demanding, so competitive, so global. As a leader, it's hard to know everything you're supposed to know. And then technology changes so fast. How do you keep up with it all? And then crises that happen when you can least afford them. And then all the time and effort and struggle it takes to build these seamless experiences on the surface. And then the challenge of building the team that's going to get you to the next level, the next camp. So much challenge. And then the world has challenges. Beyond that, you know, the poverty and disease and natural disasters and environmental disasters and climate change and pollution and a clash of ideologies that compete around the world that create violence, turbulence. So much challenge. And honestly, those might be the things that wind up crushing us. Or they could become the most potent fuel source we have for transformation. See, I think the world is crying out for alchemy. And you may be the alchemist. You may be the world's best hope for alchemy. But we're not going to do it alone. I know there's a lot of smart people in this room. We're going to do it with a great team. Great things are done with a great team. This is my team. This is my team, the team that helped me get to the summit of Everest. You know, when I thought about the secret weapon that would get me to the top. Technology is important, very important, but not the most important. Big pile of money, very nice, but not the most important. What will get me to the top of the people? The people that I surrounded myself with. And I thought very carefully about those people. I wanted to put my life in their hands. And in return, they would do me an honor of putting their life back in my hands. And when you break down a great team, what you're left with at the heart of it, as you know, is trust. It's very fragile. It's hard to earn. It's easy to lose. And that doesn't mean that everyone in your team has to be perfect or superhuman. Like my friend Jeff, first person I invited on my team, despite 105 Grateful Dead concerts and 185 Widespread Panic shows, I still trust him. Yeah, he's got a few brain cells left. And Jeff and I had done other ventures together, actually. We had raced across Morocco a few years back as part of this thing called Expedition Impossible, galloping camels across the Sahara Desert and climbing mountains and solving all these problems along the way. And I wanted my team to tell me everything I needed to know to get me ready. But because there are teams, fast teams, ready to pass you and eliminate you in the field, we couldn't do that. Everything had to be done on the basis of trust. You'll see what I mean. This is Jeff talking.
All right, it's going to be about a, oh my God, it's like a 30-footer. What? Yeah, it's cool, it's cool. 30-footer, it's no problem though, dude. It's no problem. You will do this.
Erik's been trusting me for close to 20 years now, you know. He's just been listening to what I'm saying. If I say, jump off this cliff, he knows I'm going to lead him in the right way. I've got his best interest in mind. Chances are good that he's going to live through it. He's just got to trust me and jump at the same time.
Step up with me. Don't step. You're good. Now come right here, right next to me. Over here. Over here. Stand right next to me. Don't knock me off. I'm right on the edge. No, on this side. On your right. Yeah, right there. Okay, we're good. That's the edge. That's the edge. You got it? Stand up. No, you got to stand up. What? You got to stand up and jump. You can't sit down. Hold on to me. Just give me your hand. Give me your hand. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Do you trust your teams like that? Yeah? Good. Because Steph's got an exercise after this, by the way. She's got the blindfolds all ready for you. See, trust is so important. My friend Narissa Cannon, she lost total trust in the world. She was diagnosed with this crazy neurological disease. Nobody could explain it. Nobody could explain it. No doctor, no expert in the world. As she lost all movement, she was in a wheelchair. She said, when she came to our event, she said, Erik, I'm going to give this 6 months, and if it doesn't work out, I'm going to kill myself. She got pretty motivated, and after the event, she said, Erik, one of my goals, one of my pledges, was to climb a Colorado 14,000-foot peak. I never got to, though. I think it's possible. In my mind, I thought, well, a lot could go wrong here. But they didn't say that. I said, yeah, I think it's possible. About a month later, 30 people showed up at 4 in the morning. Then most of them didn't even know Narissa. And with Narissa cranking on her Freedom Grit chair, and people working together, pushing and pulling and towing and spotting and even carrying. We reached the summit together. We sat down. We sat there next to each other. Narissa was crying. She said, the summit, it makes me feel so small, but it also gives me a renewed determination so that I may be closer to the beauty of the world, and that I may be connected with good people for as long as I live. See, I'd studied teams on and off the mountain. A lot of them were sort of teams on paper, but they fell short. They were loose confederations of people doing similar things, similar times. I wanted a group of people who weren't afraid to link their fates together, to be responsible for each other and to each other. What I love best about climbing is that you're actually roped up. You move onto a glacier, you're like a snake wriggling up the mountain, all the pieces in perfect sync. Yet everyone's doing something very different to keep the team moving, functioning, and safe. What's even the best part is that if one person on that team were to take a tumble, fall through a snow bridge into a crevasse, or tumble down the mountain, it's in everyone's interest to stop them from going. Yeah, what you do is you throw yourself on your axe, you jam it into the snow, and you stop that person, because you're next. It's actually a terrifying way to travel. You got to be careful who you let onto your rope team, because they have this power. Everyone on that team has this incredible power. They can drive you to the summit, they can pull you like a tuna to the top, or they can kill you. It's their choice. But in an environment riddled with pitfalls, I think linking ourselves with great people is the best chance we have. First of all, maybe start by looking around this room. Look around this room. This is your Lenovo channel rope team. It's a pretty cool team. Don't cheat. I want to hear your necks creaking. Look at each other. It's an uncomfortable moment. Look each other in the eyes. And know that you guys are connected. You're roped up here. You know, and now take this team and now add to the teams that you're part of, at your companies, at your partnerships. All those teams, and then take your customers, and maybe sometimes their customers. Now you have a rope team, millions strong. And it's hard when it gets that big. It's hard. You know, people have different ideas. They have different motivations, different political ideas, different things that motivate them. But you know that you're one team on one mountain moving towards one summit. You're one rope team. And you begin to trust each other, rely on each other. And you begin to use each other's expertise and talents and insights and different genders and ages and experiences. And the beautiful, beautiful part is that you can lift each other up. When somebody reaches the summit, they're standing on your shoulders. And when you stand on the summit, they're lifting you up. And sure, this is a big rope team, as I said. And it's not like the rope teams of the past where you're just siloed next to the people and those are your rope team. No, this is these incredible virtual rope teams. You come together in this fluid way to solve problems that you could never solve alone. The scope and the power of that kind of team is unstoppable. That vision that you connect to becomes the fuel that drives you. It becomes the glue that binds you. That's the kind of team I wanted around me on Everest. The Sherpas, they're a huge part of the rope team on Everest. They were our big supporters. Our biggest critics were the naysayers who told me I was going to go kill myself. What they were talking about is the Khumbu ice fall. Khumbu ice fall, 3,000 feet of jumbled up boulders of ice of every size imaginable, exploding and collapsing and tumbling down the mountain like a river of ice. It moves about 1 meter a day. It doesn't meet Americans with Disability Act standards, I guess I'd say. And ladders, crossing ladders. Some ladders so crevasses so wide you can't get across them any other way except 4 or 5 ladders lashed together. And up the Lhotse face and up to the south summit, across the Knife Edge Ridge, up the Hillary Step. I was taking 6 breaths. 6 breaths between each step. And I took a step. And the earth sort of dropped away before me. And I could hear the sound of space, of sound vibrations moving out infinitely through space, around me, above me, below me, like I'd been swallowed by sky. See, the best part was that those naysayers said we're going to have a disaster, but we had the most successful, maybe climb in history. 19 of us reached the summit. The most people from one team to reach the summit of Everest in a single day. Reached the summit. And the Sherpas on Everest, they say something kind of funny, though. They say something kind of interesting. They say that the summit of Everest is not the real summit. It's only the halfway summit. And what I guess they mean at a practical level is that you got to get down the mountain alive for it really counts, I guess. But I think at a deeper level what they mean is that you got to come down the mountain. You got to descend down the mountain to these deep valleys where human beings live and work before it really matters. And I think that's true. I think it's not the summit that's the real culmination. You know, when we stand there and we say, look, I made the sales quota, pounding my chest, here I am on this top. That feels good, but it's not the real culmination. I think the real culmination is when we come down the mountain and we take the gifts that we've earned through our struggles and we use them to elevate our lives and our rope teams and the world around us. It's about elevation. And I know you're all in the technology business, but really beneath that, you are in the elevation business. You lift people up so that they can go out and achieve their no barriers dreams. And that's the way it was for me. Coming down Everest, the culmination for me was teaming back up with old friends, Mark Wellman and Hugh Herr. These old friends, we're so impressed by the way that each of us had broken through barriers in our lives that we decided to come together and build what we hope someday would be a movement. It's also an organization we call No Barriers. It's predicated on this idea that what's within us is stronger than what's in our way. Our mission is to help people with challenges, that's all of us, to break through those barriers, to tap into the light of the human spirit, to find purpose, and use it all to elevate the world. We bring together what we call pioneers. They're people who push the envelope in art, in science and art. They're technologists and inventors and engineers and humanitarians and musicians, all coming together to show others the way forward. Like my friend Amanda Boxtel, in a wheelchair for 30 years, when she stood up on our stage using this exoskeleton technology, walked down the stairs, pointed at a group of wheelchair users in the front row, and said, get ready to walk. That's No Barriers. Or like my friend Sam Schmidt. He was an IndyCar racer. He crashed, broke his neck, paralyzed from the neck down. He decided he could drive again, build a group of technology partners around him. They built what they call the SAM car, semi-autonomous motor car. with infrared scanners that track his eye movements and a straw puff and sip system that he uses to accelerate and brake. And he's gotten back in that car and he's driven it. But better than that, he's raced it at over 200 miles per hour. But all these challenges, as you know, they're not just physical. Sometimes they're invisible, like my friend Paul Smith. Paul had a tough life because when he was a kid, his mom was killed, overwhelmed the family, sent terrible trauma into his life. His dad sent him off to military school. He graduated, he joined the 1st Cavalry Division, served in Iraq. IED exploded, burned him over 50% of his body. He told me, Eric, the real barrier was not the physical stuff, the pain and the scars and the burns. I could live with that. The real barrier, he said, was the shame because he was being sent home. It brought all that trauma back into his life. He spiraled downward. He had car accidents and suicide attempts and drugs and alcohol. Family fell apart. Soldiers have a day they call their Alive Day. It's the anniversary that they survived their injury. One of those he spent in jail. But last year, he spent it high up in the mountains with our No Barriers Warriors team, celebrating all that lay before him. We headed up to the summit, and we passed a crevasse along the way. Paul looked down into that crevasse, and he took a rock, and he dropped it in, and he listened to the sound rattle downward and disappear. And he said, that rock, it represents my nightmares, and I'm putting them behind me. And all the soldiers began to throw their rocks into the crevasse, listening to their shame and their frustration and anger and sadness and loss, all disappearing into that dark abyss. And he turned around and he headed down the mountain. He said he'd never looked out in the same way before. He could see so far over the rocky ridges, all the way over the foothills, all the way to the horizon, as far as the eye could see. And he said his potential felt as limitless as the landscape itself. And it was the first time in a very long time he could see his future. That's No Barriers. Now, I started on the Grand Canyon, and I want to end there, because when I swam through Lava Falls, I was devastated. Devastated. I camped right below lava, and I could listen to the roar of it. And I tried to understand what the river was telling me. It was hard to understand. You know, I thought you commit to this No Barriers life, and you build this world-class rope team around you, and you pursue, go forward, and you perform alchemy along the way, and you pioneer your way forward, and all the barriers, they're going to fall down before you, and you'll be gifted with a storybook ending. That hadn't happened. I had swum through lava like a drowned rat. Even lava, Harlan, as good as you could be, got shoved through lava with a broken nose and busted paddle. And I thought maybe it's the river, these huge, massive forces, bigger than us. Maybe those are what tell the story. Maybe it's the diagnosis that changes our life, or the adversity that knocks us down and says, don't get up again, or the world event that changes the course of human history. Maybe these are the things that tell the story. Maybe humans are just canyon walls being eroded by time. And then I thought about the people, like Narissa and Amanda and Mark and Hugh and Kyle, who had eliminated bits and pieces of that map that I wanted to navigate in my life. Then I thought about the decisions that we make. We make them every day. They either shove us to the sidelines, or they propel us forward along that map in these beautiful, unexpected ways, often towards new discoveries. And then I thought about Terry Fox, and these moments when you want to shrink, You want to protect yourself. You lean in to something deeper, that light, and you commit to it, and you let it blaze into the world. And I crawled out of my tent. It had been a pretty sleepless night, and I said, Harlan, what do you say we try Lava Falls one more time? This is my second run through lava.
Alright, take a nice deep breath, buddy. We're gonna have a good run. Just be here in the moment.
Thank you, Lenovo Rope Team. Keep climbing. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. That was very moving.
I'm not crying, you're crying.
That's twice this week I've cried. So the diversity one and this is, yeah.
That was unbelievable, Eric. Thank you for sharing that inspirational story with us. And thank you to all of our partners for sticking with us through the end of day 3. We couldn't have done this without you. It's been a great Accelerate 2019, and so we, on behalf of the entire Lenovo team, certainly appreciate it. But certainly that's a great way to leave this and talk about the way that we build that rope together and build that rope team together and how we go take on this market collectively. So again, thank you, Eric, for sharing that story with us.
Wonderful. And Rob, thanks for taking that so I could wipe my eyes and get my composure back. I appreciate it. So I feel a little anticlimactic offering you this, but we're going to give you another show special. And I will try to tie it into the wonderful inspirational words that you heard there. So I'm offering a way for you to get to your next elevation in our tiering programs. Yeah, see, it came off corny, it's not good. But we're going to offer you a show special on our storage products. So I'm going to let you have 70% off list. You don't have to take a picture, we'll send it out. Distribution can handle it for you, it's all good. 70% off list on your first unit DE program. Now, it's offered, you have limit 1 per customer. So you can sell it to a customer once, you can offer this to a customer once, but there's no limit of the number of customers I want you to take this out into the marketplace. So if you have 10 customers you think are appropriate for our DE storage, great. You have 10 opportunities to do this. My only condition is you sell it by September 30th, 2019. So that is your deadline. Because you're here at the show, you'll have an advantage over everybody else, but this will be something we have in offer in market for the rest of the quarter. Show off, sorry.
So I told you guys yesterday about the show special for those of you that are focused on the SMB market. Our ThinkBook offering is an absolute perfect product for you, and I would love for you to take advantage of the 50% off, but I also know that there are some of you that don't focus on the SMB space, and so we want to make sure you have an offer as well. So we're offering you one or the other, either a ThinkBook or a 40% off of our new premium mobile workstation, our ThinkPad P1. So you can take advantage of one of those two offerings.
Pretty cool, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
But wait, there's more.
Well, yes, as a token of our appreciation for all of you attending this year's Accelerate in 2019, we will also be shipping you very shortly one of our new Lenovo smart clocks, which was announced this year at CES. So you get to take advantage of one of our brand new products that is just coming out in the marketplace. Hope you will enjoy that as well.
So guys, thanks so much for attending this year. I'll give you an update. With the help of our generous sponsors, Intel, Microsoft, and Tech Data, we built 1,100 STEM kits that will benefit It was emotional, yeah. So.
That's going to obviously go to the Boys and Girls Club here in the Greater Orlando area. Would also like to thank all of the folks, our sponsors, especially, but also all the folks from Lenovo, all the folks from ESG, our event strategy group that helps us put on this event. We certainly could not have done this without you, and it means so much for you guys to be a part of that. A special thanks for a couple of folks from my team, Jeff Taylor, Kim Johnson, Chun Lee, and Kara Weems. You guys are a phenomenal job putting this thing together. Thank you for all your work to do this.
And I'd like to call out my leadership team. My channel leadership team did a great job getting things together. And Phil Kotros and Carolyn Spedafino, hey, thanks so much. You pulled this all together. So you made us look good, and we appreciate it. So a big round of applause for you.
That's the real team that got us here.
Finally, as we said, we value your feedback. So you're going to receive a survey in your inbox from Accelerate 19. So check the spam folder in case it goes there. And please take a few minutes to let us know what we can improve on for next year. You've heard us, we listen, so we'd like to make it the very best Accelerate next year. And speaking of next year.
Yes, we want you to save the date. So we are going back to Las Vegas. We have moved the date out. We will not interrupt your Mother's Day plans next year. So look for June 16th through the 19th. Please book that now. We will come out with a lot more information soon. But again, we would ask you guys to participate. We'd love for your feedback to help us make that the best possible event that it can be.
Okay, and folks, just before we go, a few kind of thoughts. I hope you're encouraged to try something new with Lenovo. I hope you heard from Kevin. Be curious. Get out there in the marketplace. Start discovering some of these technologies. They matter to our mutual customers. Have an opinion on them, have a discussion, have a conversation. Bring us along, we can help you have that discussion and that conversation. And I hope we've earned the right to be your most trusted data center partner. Appreciate the time and have a great summer, folks. And Rob?
Yeah, just again, continue to engage us, climbing new heights together, as Eric talked about. It's an opportunity for us to engage, collaborate, take action. It's one of the things that Lenovo really strives to do. Both Steph and I are absolutely committed to listening to your feedback and taking action. And then let's go deliver results in the market and kick ass, guys. Thank you so much for being a part of this. I hope you have a safe travel home. Thank you. All
right. Take us out.
Listen up, people. This is so exciting.
You're going to want to hear this, man.
Oh, I love sales.
I just love sales.
You're a salesman. This is a sales gig.
I'm in sales.
You remember ABC? Yeah, always be closing. That's right, always be closing.
Sell me this pen. Sell me this pen. Sell me this pen.
Get them to sign on the line which is dotted.
Here we are. It's like, let's make a deal. Here we go. Win big, win big.
You go big or you go home.
Yeah! That's what I'm talking about.
Awesome. Are you ready?
All right, now this is only going to happen if we all work together. Now who's in?
We work together? Yes, working together. You got a deal.
I want us to form a partnership, building partnerships and alliances.
And now we're working together.
We're strong.
And if we do this, we go to the next level.
It's time to go to the next level.
Are you ready? Let's do this.
Let's do this.
Let's do this.
Here we go.
That was my sales pitch.